The Wooden Cabin, Chapter 4, the final chapter. Ethan had become more than a visitor. He was now part of her story, part of her healing, and though neither of them said it aloud, they both knew this was only the beginning. The years moved quietly after that first winter. Vermont seasons came and went. Rain, sun, and the golden calm of autumn. Time reshaped Clara's world in gentle ways. The once lonely cabin at the edge of town no longer stood in silence. It was filled with laughter, shared meals, the sound of music from the old radio, and the warmth of two people who realized that love didn't always arrive when expected. It came when it was needed most. Clara and Ethan's bond had grown stronger with every passing day. What began as chance and kindness had turned into a life built on trust, patience, and understanding. They didn't rush anything. They took their time learning each other's rhythms, fears, and dreams. Clara had found peace again, and Ethan, who had spent years wandering from one project to another, had finally found a home that felt alive. The cabin reflected their life together. He had rebuilt the porch, fixed the roof, and carved small wooden birds that hung from the beams. Each one symbolized a chapter of their journey. She filled the rooms with color, soft blankets, and plants that reached for the sun through the wide windows. Together, they turned what was once a shelter into a sanctuary. Every morning, Clara would wake up before Ethan, make coffee, and watch the sun rise from the porch. She would hear the creak of her floor behind her, then feel his arms wrap around her shoulders. "You're up early again," he'd whisper, his voice warm with sleep. She would smile and say, "Just watching the world start over." Those moments were quiet, but they meant everything. One afternoon, years after that snowy night when they met, Clara stood by the window as the first snow of the season began to fall. The memory of that night came back to her so clearly. The knock, the cold, the stranger who asked to come in. How simple it had seemed, and yet how deeply it had changed everything. She turned and saw Ethan outside splitting firewood near the shed, his breath visible in the cold air. He looked older now, his hair touched with gray, his face marked by time. But to her, he was more handsome than ever. She stepped outside, wrapping her scarf tightly. "You'll catch a cold," she called out. He looked up, smiling. "I've fought worse storms. She laughed, walking closer, still pretending to be indestructible. Maybe, he said, wiping his hands, but only because I have someone worth staying strong for. Clara's heart warmed at his words. She stood there watching him for a moment, realizing just how much life had changed since that first meeting. She had once been afraid of trusting again, afraid of opening her heart. But now, looking at the man who had quietly rebuilt her world, she couldn't imagine her life any other way. That evening, they sat together by the fire as they had done countless times before. Ethan was reading an old book, and Clara was painting. The flames flickered slowly, casting golden light across their faces. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked suddenly. He looked up. "The night I knocked on your door?" "Yes," she said. "Everything started with that sound. If I hadn't opened it..." He closed the book gently. "You did, though. That's what matters. You listened to something inside you, something that told you to take a chance." Clara nodded. "You changed everything, Ethan. I didn't realize how empty my life was until you walked in." He smiled, his voice quiet but steady. "You filled mine too, Clara. Before you, I just moved from place to place, building houses for other people. I didn't know what home really meant until I met you." They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling softly. Then Ethan said, "Funny how life works. Sometimes it doesn't give you what you want, but what you truly need." Clara reached for his hand. "And I needed you." Years continued to pass, and though time brought its share of challenges, sickness, aging, the slow fading of youth, they faced it all together. Their love wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about the simple things. Cooking together on cold nights, taking long drives to watch the fall colors, laughing over burnt toast, holding hands during thunderstorms. Those small moments built a lifetime. One Sunday morning, as Clara was sitting on the porch painting, when Ethan came outside carrying a wooden box. "I've been working on something," he said, setting it down in front of her. She opened it and gasped. Softly inside was a hand-carved wooden heart, smooth and polished, with her name engraved on one side. and his on the other. I made it from the old oak that fell last year, he said. Thought we should keep a piece of it with us. Tears welled in her eyes as she touched the carving. It's beautiful, Ethan. He smiled shyly. It's not perfect, but... She stopped him with a gentle shake of her head. It's perfect to me. That evening, they hung the wooden heart above the fireplace. It became a symbol of their journey and proof that love can grow from the simplest beginnings, even from something as small as a knock on the door. Years later, when the world outside their cabin seemed to move faster than they can keep up with, Clara often found herself reflecting on everything they had shared. Ethan had become the center of her peace and steady presence that reminded her love didn't need to be loud to be strong. One winter night, much like the one when they met, Clara woke up to the sound of the wind against the window. Ethan was asleep beside her, his breathing slow and peaceful. She reached over, brushed her hand through his hair, and whispered, "You're still my miracle." She lay there thinking about the life they had built, how far she had come from the woman who once feared letting anyone in. The cabin that used to echo with silence was now a home filled with memories, the smell of coffee, the sound of laughter, and the warmth of love. As the snow continued to fall outside, Clara realized something she had always known deep down. Letting Ethan in wasn't just about opening the door, it was about opening her heart to life again, to trust, to kindness, to the possibility of happiness after pain. In the years that followed, when visitors came to the small town and asked about the old cabin by the woods, locals often spoke of the couple who lived there. Two people who had found love, not in grand adventures, but in quiet moments, in shared warmth, in the courage to say yes when life knocked. And every winter, when the first snow fell, Clara would sit by the fire, holding that wooden heart, and smile. He was bigger than anything I had ever seen, she would whisper to herself, remembering a man who changed her world, not by force, but by love that was patient, kind, and true. Then she would look out at the snow, the same kind that had once carried him to her doorstep, and say softly, I never regret letting him in, because that one choice on one cold night had given her everything she never knew she was missing. Love that was real, lasting, and beautiful. Simple. The end.